Good morning, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us for this next session. We're going to crack on because 30 minutes is going to go so quickly with Chris. If anyone knows him, he talks a lot. Okay, he's a comedian, he's an author, actor, presenter. He is so light on his feet that he floats like an angel. Yes, he's a dancer as well. And we're going to be discussing...
I thought you were going to down the floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee for a minute.
Well, we're going to be talking about his cutting-edge technology documentary, which is coming to the BBC very soon. So let's put our hands together and welcome Chris formally.
Hey there.
Thank you so much for being here. Lots of people who know you well will know that you're a tech geek, but not many people might know that.
Yeah, I've been doing comedy for 22 years, but I'm 48, and before that, I was one of them kids that was only good at the things in school that I wanted to be good at, and that was computers and maths and bollocks to everything else. And so I did computers and maths. I got A's in that and rubbish and everything else. So I did A-level computers and maths and further maths. And then I did software engineering and basically ended up as a website designer. But my eyesight was deteriorating and the websites were getting uglier and uglier and uglier. And I've been doing comedy for 22 years, but the geek never leaves you, you know?
Yeah. Along came the iPhone, and that did have a huge impact for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, so this is the iPhone 16. The iPhone was one of them things that before it, everything that really assisted you with a disability or with blindness had to be a piece of niche technology, bespoke technology that was often ugly and hideous and grossly overpriced, and because it was a niche market, and you had to have special software that you would buy to put on a regular computer, or special equipment that you'd have to buy to do things. And then the iPhone came out, a fundamentally kind of inaccessible device by its design. You go, how can a blind person use that? It's not even any buttons on it, you know? It's just a glass screen. And they made it the most accessible and useful device I've ever experienced in my life. And it changed really how I think the world came to view accessibility in terms of obligations of companies and what is possible with accessibility. And through my phone, whereas I would have needed a device years ago that would have cost £2,500 to scan mail in and read my mail out loud, I can take a photograph and do it with my phone. I do my banking through my phone. I order taxis, shopping, everything through my phone, just like you all do. But that is why it was revolutionary, because before the iPhone, just like everybody else, wasn't possible. You know, you had to have your own special little ways of doing things or get help off people. And with the iPhone, it gave a huge level of autonomy, independence. And I still rely on people now. You have to rely on people when you've got a disability for things. But I suppose that's where we're getting now with AI, is that this device provided me with independence and autonomy on a level I'd never experienced before. And now AI is kind of doing the same. And I use AI through this. This was the biggest game changer in accessibility in 2009, 2008. AI, I think, is now the biggest game changer in accessibility in 2025. And it's not perfect. There's a long way to go, but it's already incredible, and it is the shittest it will ever be.
So with the iPhone, you could use technology without adaptations. It was counterintuitive, and changed your life so that you could just function normally like everyday people.
Well, just do things like everybody else. You know, it's by making something that's for everybody. You know, it was a combination of making a device that was for everybody, but also the smartphone revolution, making this not just a phone, but access to services. Yeah. You know, and if you make the device accessible, then, you know, and you encourage the app developers to make their apps accessible, you make a whole range of services accessible that weren't previously. So even just from the point of view of being at home and having, for example, whether you've got a Hive at home, the app's accessible, or straight away you've got an accessible heating system just at your fingertips because this was accessible, you see. And it's the same with tons of things, really. banking through your shopping and everything.
So AI-enabled apps are moving at a pace, which is incredible. And this is where the new documentary comes in, because it stems from an idea that you had in 2019.
Yeah, so I pitched this in 2019, and everybody went, "What's AI?" And because AI at the time was underpinning things that were quite grand, you know, and things that weren't really consumer-based. So, you know, you look at self-driving cars, AI underpins that, and they were on the horizon. But you know, then we got COVID, and then you know, other things came up. But all of a sudden, AI is now a consumer subject. You know, it's in everybody's faces. You can't move without AI this and AI that, and it's now in your hand. And so it felt like it was far more accessible to people at home to really understand and really get on board with. So we kind of we made this documentary about the future of technology, but it's the future of technology that is for everybody, and that's why it's exciting to me, because I'm now part of everybody. It's not like this is for some people and then you've got your own special type of technology. The door was opened about 15 years ago, which allows me and other people like myself into the club, where we can get excited about what is around the corner in mainstream tech as well, because things are being developed for everybody in mind. So the documentary, we talk about AI through the smartphone, wearable tech, self-driving cars.
So you explore loads of other things.
Yeah, and we got to San Francisco, and the first time I've ever been in a car in my life that's driving with nobody else in it.
How did that feel?
And not crashed it. Yeah, it was a remarkable experience, really. And these things are just driving around the streets, and you know, Waymo who make the self-driving cars, they're a part of Google, but they've built these things with obviously accessibility in mind. The first person to ever drive in one was blind, because they saw the personal connection between somebody who's unable to drive themselves and what the car represents. And when you get into it, it's like ordering one on an Uber, but you've got settings on it where you can make it verbose, and you can make it describe what's happening, people crossing in front of the car, the streets it's turning on. When it arrives, you can get the car to play a tune so you can find it. And if you can't hear the tune, you can beep its horn so you can follow the car. So they've thought of these things, and I think, you know, going back 15, 20 years, these things would not have been at the forefront of people's minds in terms of including access on a basic level. And the beautiful thing about accessibility is that accessibility is typically considered for the small amount of people that definitely absolutely need it, but it ends up benefiting far more people who don't fall into that category, but struggle to a level that isn't categorized as being, you know, disabled or whatever. So it's you build things accessibly, and you create a better experience for everybody.
Now, we have got a sneaky peek of your new documentary. Is it out in autumn?
I mean, Tim's the man to ask about that.
I did say I'd feed
what
that,
we're doing,
Tim. Let's move on and have a look.
All right, should we ever go live?
Should we do it live?
I mean, let's see if it's still talking to me here. Let's have a go. Right, so we unmute that. Hi, I'm just doing a demo of you, funny enough, for the BBC here, and I'm on stage. Can you tell me, this is the person who I'm talking to on stage.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, from what I can see, it looks like the person you're talking to on stage is still that host in the navy pinstripe suit. She's got a pretty warm expression, and it seems like she's listening to you. And there's a big sign behind her with some text that says something like, "Where do we grow from here?" So that's the general scene, and I think you're doing a great job with the demo.
Does she look interested?
Yeah, she actually does. Smile, and she's leaning forward slightly in her chair. So she seems really engaged in what you're saying. I'd say the vibe is definitely positive.
Okay, more importantly, does the audience look interested?
Yeah, so looking out at the audience, they actually look pretty engaged as well. I can see a bunch of them kind of leaning forward a bit in their seats. Some of them have a bit of a smile. So overall, it looks like you've got their attention and they're definitely interested in what's going on stage.
That's really good, because the Director General of the BBC is in the audience. And I don't want to look bad in front of him, because he can give me work in the future, you see.
Well, in that case, you're in good shape because everyone looks pretty engaged. So hopefully you'll make a great impression. And yeah, if the Director General's out there, I'd say you're definitely holding his attention too. So
That is fascinating.
For a minute there, I thought he became paralysed with fright at the mention of your name, Tim, there.
So it's November, so it's going to be out in November. Okay, your documentary.
Let me just make sure I turn this on. Yeah, I have to mute it, otherwise it thinks everything that gets said is towards it. It's the most narcissistic thing. So there you go anyway, but you can get it to describe all kinds of things to you. And the incredible thing about AI is that, you know, there's a bit of a delay there, and because the Wi-Fi was awful, but it can be quicker. And but you can just ask it questions. You can ask it questions about things that you are in the kitchen, labels on things, to read things. You can ask it about. I can ask it if me shirt's clean, and it'll tell me if I've got food on it or whatever. You can. I mean, the thing is even if I'm shopping, I can pass it photographs of something I'm looking at, an item of clothing, and get an idea of whether I like the idea of it before I maybe ask somebody to double check, you know? And unlike my wife, it never tells me to come back later because it's watching CSI. So
But it is fascinating to hear the description and the detail, the pinstripe suit, and sort of put you in situations so you know exactly what's going on around you.
Yeah, and this is, as I said, this is as rubbish as it's ever going to be. It's like it's remarkable that AI only really came out as this kind of newly formed kind of chatbot a couple of years ago. And the acceleration in its development has been absolutely staggering, really. And that's because it is for everybody. If this was just an access technology, it would have been a lot slower, because it would have been a niche, there wouldn't have been the investment in it. But it is for everybody, and a byproduct of it is that it provides a form of accessibility. And that isn't just something now that is an accident of it. It's something that the AI companies are very aware of and are factoring in to its development along the way.
Because there was something, you remember we were talking backstage about one of the things it doesn't do. It doesn't necessarily be specific about the person you're talking to.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about it, is that there are privacy concerns with AI about people's faces and things, and when you're blind, that's important. You want access to the information that you can't see, and so sometimes with some of the AIs, they won't describe people's faces at all, really, or they won't say if they recognize the person, if it's a famous person, because of privacy concerns, and that's something that I think needs to be looked at, really, in terms of making it a truly great accessibility tool to get full descriptions of, you don't want to be looking at a photograph of somebody famous, whatever it is, and Denzel Washington, and it just say a man, You want to know that that's a photograph of Denzel Washington. And also...
So you want the specifics of the
Yeah, but
race,
we were talking about race as well, you know. I think we have these protected statuses, whether it's race and religion and disability and so on, and sometimes it's felt like it can't be commented on. And I think it's important, because these are things that are passively absorbed by everybody else without having to, prompt or ask a question. And I think when you're talking to somebody and you're blind, you do build an image of somebody in your head, or you do want to build images in your head. And I think ethnicity and culture and heritage is a really important part of somebody's character, and shouldn't be something that we're scared to flag and talk about as being a key part of their description.
Yeah.
And I think the same can apply to audio description. When you do an audio description on the telly, don't be afraid to say that oh, it's a white guy in a wheelchair, it's a black woman with braids, it's an Asian man. Do you know what I mean? Paint the picture, and because these are important parts of people's character that should be proud and should be, it should be part of their descriptive, attributes, really.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you were also talking about, like, even if you go to a restaurant, knowing when you know certain information, it does influence.
Yeah, because like I've had to ask people in the past, like when I talk to somebody and I have a conversation with someone, and I'll say to somebody, are they white or black? Because I want to know, right? And it's not that it's the same when I'm in a restaurant or in a cafe, and I'll ask somebody, or in a shop, how much is that? How much is that? How much is that? And it's like I'm obsessed with price. But it's because you all just passively absorb it. You don't need to ask. And so things that everybody else takes for granted are important. And they are important, whether it's the price of something, whether whether somebody's got a disability, whether it's somebody's ethnicity, their culture, their style. It's all important,
So you're just not tight, though.
Huh?
So you're not tight.
Oh, well, I'm both. I'm blind and I'm from Liverpool, so it's 50-50.
So, you said that 2019, your idea didn't come to fruition, and it has now, but strictly, let's talk about that. I mean, you didn't want to do it at first. It's something you took a convincing, and it's changed the way people see you and the possibilities out there, isn't it? Hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think, years and years ago, I'm quite hypocritical sometimes. I don't know what I want. Years and years ago, I was offered a lot of telly, going back kind of maybe 15, 20 years in that window, and a lot of stuff that was so heavily disability focused. Almost like if we're gonna represent, we're gonna tick as many boxes as we can, and we're gonna do it all in one go. And I said no to a lot of these things: disabled sketch shows, disabled travel shows with just other disabled people, and a disabled version of Big Brother, and all these things, because I thought that they sent out the wrong message about what representation is.
Did that annoy you?
Yeah. Well, it just felt dated. It felt very dated, and it felt wrong to me to say that, we can represent, but we show that disabled people only do disabled things with other disabled people. And so I said no to all these things because it wasn't really the message I wanted to be a part of putting out. And we are now at the point where representation across mainstream program, which is always what I said I wanted, is so marching in the right direction. And Strictly's always been ahead of the curve in that regard, wanting to push boundaries and wanting to represent. So when they asked me to do it, it's a really good thing that that's what they're aiming for. But I still said no, because I thought they were fucking insane. So, so on one hand, I'm like, yeah, we need representation on the biggest mainstream shows on the telly. And then on the other hand, it's like, are you mental? And so I said no, because I just didn't know I was going to do it. Just had no idea. I couldn't even imagine what it was they were asking me to do. You can't describe it.
So what made you say yes?
So I'm quite a complicated person inside my own head. They kept on asking me, and I knew, obviously, they wanted their first blind person on the show, because they kept on asking. I kept on saying no, because I was terrified. And I just thought, if I'm terrible at this, it's no good for anybody. It's not good for me, it's not good for other blind people, it's not good for social attitudes towards disability. And I kept on saying no, and they kept on asking. I thought, well, they obviously want somebody blind to do it. And I knew that I would be good at the other ways of representing. I knew that I could do it without a sob story, and I knew I could do it with comedy, and I knew I could do it in a positive way. The dancing was a problem. But I knew all the other things I could do positively. And then I kind of also became very aware that I'm quite privileged in that I'm being asked, because there's not a lot of options. Let's be honest. I'm very lucky that I'm in a position where I've been given opportunities along the way that have allowed me to build a profile that's got me to the level where I would fit their criteria of being well enough known by a big enough number of people to be on the show. And if I kept on saying no, who else would they ask to do it? And if they ask somebody else, I thought, and they get somebody else blind on it, and they turn up with a sob story and a little violin, or they don't put the effort in to show that more is possible, I knew that I would be bloody furious that they were representing blindness in a way that I wouldn't have represented blindness. And then I thought, well, if I know I want blindness represented, then why don't I bloody do it myself? And so that was kind of it as well. And I just realized that it was, the dancing was a problem, but the opportunity was there. But it was such an unknown quantity.
You were amazing at the dancing. I'm not
terrified. Most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life was that first episode, because I didn't know if it was possible. We practiced in an empty room. I could hear Diane around me breathing, counting her feet. In the studio, I knew with the band and the crowd, I wouldn't be able to hear her at all. She'd be invisible in multiple ways. And so I didn't know if it was going to be a disaster. Absolutely, and so I was terrified. And that was the thing. We weren't just surprising the audience and the people at home. We were surprising ourselves, and I was surprising myself. And it was the most remarkable thing I've ever been a part of.
And I think it was the most remarkable thing a lot of people saw.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you say you wanted to be, represent blind people, but for people who could see, for me, you made me think I can do whatever I want to do. And I think that's why you resonated with the audience, because it wasn't about disability, it transcended that. It's making me feel emotional because it was like watching you.
The messages we were getting from people from all walks of life and with all obstacles, to face, it was overwhelming. It was a lot. And for me, representation on telly, the important thing about representation for me isn't you can't see it if you can't be it if you can't see it, right? I get that. I get the value in representing so that you can inspire people from a similar background or minority or underrepresented group to follow those dreams. I get the point of that. But for me, the more valuable part of representation is education. And it is representing underrepresented groups to everybody else. And if everybody else sees somebody that's not like themselves being represented in the mainstream, normally, and more, and in a way that they have never seen before, that's where social attitudes have changed. And so I'm very aware that often with the shows I do, I might be the only exposure to somebody blind that a lot of people have. Yeah. So it's important to me that things are done capably. I remember when I did 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, the first time I did that, it's a very visual game, and you need to be able to see the letters and see the numbers in front of you, and I knew that they'd put me on it going, well, he'll have a go and he'll make it funny if he's crap at it. And I thought, what will be funnier is if I'm really, really good at Countdown. And I'm not lying, I watched 60 episodes in 2 weeks. I don't know if you've counted it, but the theme tune plays 17 times an episode. Right? My wife nearly left me, right? And I came up with ways of doing the numbers in my head. I pictured them like a phone keypad. I wouldn't remember the sequence of numbers. I'd remember the pattern, and it allowed me to access them quicker. Rather than remembering 9 letters, I built sets of 3. So I'd remember 3. All I had to do was remember 3 things then, like boo, ing, and tad, or something like that. And then you can kind of make words easier. And I had 60 episodes I watched, came up with these plans. I went on and I battered everybody. And it was far funnier than if I'd have been shit at it. Because it was far funnier watching John Richardson getting battered by a blind man at Countdown. But the good thing is it sent out a good message. It surprises people. And I think that's an important part of representation, is representing normally, showing capability, and strictly allowed me to do that in a way that I never ever thought possible, really.
Yes, no, but we've got 5 minutes, and there's a couple more things I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
We first met a couple of years ago when I was asked to be on a pilot where you were going to be the quiz show host.
Yeah.
It was cutting edge technology. Now that didn't get commissioned, but being a quiz show host and doing it with AI and technology is something that is on your to-do list, isn't it?
Well, we've got a quiz show, a game show, which we've done a studio pilot for it, and it's actually really, really daft. It's going to be Saturday evening if it gets commissioned, Tim. And,
do you want to be my agent?
we should be here in the next week. But the good thing, there's never been a blind host of something like that before. And last year, for ITV, I hosted a daytime chat show, and did it without an auto cue, and we came up with ways of doing it, and it worked. And there's always ways of doing things. To make things work behind the scenes. And so on this game show, I have a computer in front of me. You can't see the computer. And I have a lot of the script in my head, but I have an earpiece in. We feed the computer through the earpiece you get in the studio. I can go through the questions on the computer. As I'm hearing them in my ear, I read the questions out. You can't tell I'm doing it on the telly. We made the pilot, and it's all secret and hidden. And I've got the 4 contestants. I've got the gallery in my ear as well, the computer in my ear. My brain's turning inside out during all of this.
You're working hard for this.
Yeah, but the thing is that on the telly, you see a blind person hosting a game show like anybody else would, and I think that is just even unconsciously, if people don't go, how the hell's he doing that? They just see somebody who's blind acting like any other TV show host. And I think this is important on TV. We are a TV nation. And if we can represent minorities from all walks of life in normal, capable ways, integrated throughout society, throughout TV shows, then when people are hiring in companies, they've had exposure and they have higher expectations, and we get better representation throughout society and throughout the workplace. And it all, for me, it starts with TV, because we all watch TV, and so yeah, it's important.
And this leads on to another topic that you're very passionate about risk, and you think that we should be pushing the boundaries more in TV.
In what way?
In basically, you were talking about your adventure and the risk that's beforehand when you wouldn't get something commissioned, but now it's actually seen as possible.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always, I think we're at a stage now, I think everybody's quite terrified to take a risk with TV in terms of what do they commission, what don't they commission. I think it takes a lot longer to get something commissioned often these days than it maybe used to do. Because there is a lot more risk involved, or there seems to be. I'm not sure that's entirely true, to be honest. I think you still end up with exactly the same amount of level of great stuff and shit across all TV, no matter how long you decide to commission something. I think there's always doesn't matter what you're talking about in the world, there's always a reversion to the mean. And you'll always end up with good stuff and bad stuff, and you'll always end up with stuff in the middle. I just think that, in integration and positive representation across all programming, for me, is very, very valuable in terms of, rather than focusing on specific disability-related content for me.
You are amazing, and it's been great, and we've just finished exactly on the dot. Everybody, put your hands together for Chris McCausland.